Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar, How to Improve Employee Health, Safety and Wellbeing with ISO 45001. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few items so you know how to participate in today's event. You may have joined the presentation listening using your computer speaker system by default. If you'd prefer to join over the phone, just select phone call in the audio pane and the dial-in information will be displayed. You have the opportunity to submit text questions to today's presenters by typing your questions in the questions pane of the control. You may send in your questions at any time during the presentation, and we will collect these and address them during the Q&A session at the end of today's presentation. Any questions that we don't have time to answer during the session will be responded to you after the webinar. For your information, we'll be running some live polls today. Please note that the responses are anonymous and the results will only be shared as a percentage result. It is my pleasure to introduce your first speaker, Bill Barnes, Auditor Manager at LRQA. Bill is an integrated senior lead assessor working with LRQA since 2005 and involved in ISO 9001, 14001, 45001 and responsible care assessment. Bill has over 35 years of manufacturing, engineering, consulting, training and assessment experience for quality, health and safety, environmental and security aspects in the service and manufacturing industries, working from on-the-floor liaison, engineering to mid and senior management positions in industries including aerospace, transportation, chemicals, pulp and paper, food and beverage. He is a licensed professional engineer, LRQA Principal Auditor and Exemplar Global Responsible Care Auditor. And our special guest speaker today is Michael Trollope from BAE Systems Digital Intelligence, and Michael is the Head of Business Assurance. Mike is a standards professional implementing practical management systems that are certificated to ISO standards. He has a breadth of experience gained working in successful organizations with worldwide locations where he has implemented management systems in manufacturing, telecommunications, consultancy and cyber industries. He's currently working with BAE Systems Digital Intelligence. Mike has been responsible for setting the strategic direction of an assurance function and setting up and managing an ISO 45001, previously OSAS 18001, practical business management system. He ensures the governance and assurance activities are in line with the standard and the appropriate information is reported to senior management and colleagues. Welcome to you both.
Hey, good morning. Good morning, Mike. Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, everybody. Good evening, everybody, where you are joining us from. Glad to bring this webinar to you. My name is Bill Barnes, lead auditor, and as Luis had said, manager here in the Americas region for LRQA. In this webinar, we're going to explore some of the reasons many organizations have had great success implementing management systems for occupational health and safety risk management. There are many benefits that we've seen at LRQA as independent auditors of systems over many years, but this time we'll also get a client's perspective from Mike on the use of OHS management systems and their benefits. So don't just trust us. We try to give you some real world experiences. With the emergence of psychosocial safety considerations in many workplaces, a separate ISO guidance standard, ISO 45003, has emerged, and we will see how straightforward your OHS management system can be tailored to consider all forms of employee wellness more broadly. The Annex SL format standard for all ISO management systems was introduced over 7 years ago. It provides for a common structure to ISO standards. We'll look into adding 45001 to your integrated management systems. I understand there's a lot here, folks attending that want to understand the integration. Nowadays, it's much more straightforward thanks to the Annex SL. We'll take a look at that today. And then finally, once convinced that ISO 45001 is the right thing to do for your organization, we'll discuss our perspective and client perspective on preparing for certification and third-party audits. Next slide, please. Occupational health and safety management systems have long been a part of effective risk management. Ever since the advent of OSAS 18001, the predecessor to ISO 45001. What makes these systems standards different from others is the proven ISO framework for identifying risks, planning for controls, monitoring for effectiveness, and engaging workforces and management in periodic review for performance or improvement. Many of you may have read about the Duke-Harvard research study conducted a few years ago showing that there were 20% fewer total cases of injuries and ill health experienced by certified organizations with the OSAS 18001, now 45001 standard. So there is some empirical evidence that these things do work and do help. 20% is a fantastic number. So a complete OHS management system should and can plan for control of psychosocial health and safety risks by recognizing and adding those hazards and risks into the same process and procedures used to manage physical risks. We'll talk more about this later in the program. So probably the big why for pursuing a holistic view of wellness in your management system may not at first be obvious. Many organizations implementing management systems and pursuing third-party verification are successful because it drives engagement at all levels. It drives the development of a culture for inclusion. And that's something that everybody's striving for these days. As a result, many successful organizations experience strong workforce retention and stability in the current global competitive market for talent. This is often a leg up that smart companies are using. Business partners, investors, and many other interested parties can appreciate the internal organizational respect and experience high product acceptance as a result of improved quality. So we're looking at safety, we're realizing quality, all the more benefits. So Mike, I guess, what have been some of the tangible benefits that BAE has experienced with implementation of occupational health and safety management systems?
Well, Will, there's been two key benefits. The first is a structured set of documentation, which is aligned in a logical fashion to the standard. And the second one is a rigorous audit process, using the principle of people do what you inspect and not what you expect. And it means that audits, when you do the audit against the documentation in a rigorous manner, it means that people are reminded of what the processes actually are, and they keep it up to date.
Okay. So has ISO 45001 contributed to a safety culture at BAE, and what's the impact overall on workplace culture?
The third-party ones provide different perspectives to the internal ones. So obviously we do internal audits, which keeps the system ticking over, but the external ones bring in a different perspective. And so the auditor usually has experience of different environments and different industries, and you can have a two-way conversation with them, which is really helpful.
Okay. Next slide, please. I think now we'd like to turn it over to Louise for our first audience poll question.
Thanks, Bill. So our first poll question for today. What is your organization's biggest health and safety management challenge? And the options are workplace incident hazards, remote working or workplace transitions, psychological health and well-being, employee engagement, or meeting regulatory requirements. So which of the following is the biggest health and safety management challenge your organisation is facing at the moment? So those options again are workplace incidents and hazards, remote working or workplace transitions, psychological health and well-being, employee engagement, or meeting regulatory requirements. So please take a moment to reflect on that and select the one that's the biggest challenge that you're facing at the moment. And then we'll take a look at the results. Okay, so we can see that by quite a distance, employee engagement is the biggest challenge that our audience is seeing at the moment. Mike and Bill, do you have any reflections on that?
Well, just to begin with, what we've just been talking about, and it's a great segue into the our next discussion a little deeper on psychosocial safety. Yeah, engagement is a huge thing these days in any way, shape, or form. Engagement when it comes to workplace safety is huge, and that's kind of what so many of these behavioral-based safety programs have been chasing after for years. So we'll talk a little bit more about that after the poll. Mike?
Yeah, I think engagement is always a challenge one because there's so many people are bombarded with information, and so they will tend to switch off. So the key thing is to try to keep what you're giving people fresh and relevant information to their own selves. So it's without the employees, it doesn't work properly. You need their engagement with it. I can understand that.
Okay. So certainly great segue from that poll question with regard to engagement. Certainly nowadays, the idea of wellness is not just about keeping employees clear of physical hazards and risks. It's more about the comfort level or anxiety level that employees have when going to work. Are they distracted by external or internal issues impacting themselves or the organization? Are they influenced by, or worse, harassed by individuals or managers in the workplace? Can they keep up with the pace of ever increasing demands for productivity to control product costs? These are all issues that are quickly emerging in today's workplace. Certainly, in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, when workplace norms and policies were probably stretched beyond reasonable limits, along came ISO 45003, the psychosocial safety in the workplace. It's not a certification standard. Many have asked us that question. It's a guidance standard that employs this very familiar Annex SL format or structure to ease its integration into your OHS or your quality management system. It includes steps and methods to identify psychosocial safety hazards and risks, guidance on the development of operational controls, and audit measures to ensure improvement are effective. So the notion that can we audit or monitor or gauge our approach to this workplace culture we talked about a few minutes ago. Like other ISO standards, it drives leadership recognition of the needs and opportunities, along with employee appreciation and engagement throughout the process. So we just circled back to that leading indicator in the poll. ISO 45003 it's structured around three important categories of psychosocial risk: how work is organized, social factors, and the work environment. Let's begin with how work is organized. Let's consider roles and expectations and the stresses that come from unclear direction of job or task responsibilities. I always tell people, think back to that first day that you were on a job. What if every day was that way? How did the anxiety affect your attentiveness or effectiveness? So it's a classic example to put people's minds in that position. There are some people who that is every day, that first day. Another example is machine pacing. Now, I've audited many bottling plants and commercial bakeries. The pace is amazing and stunning at times. The secret of success has been the proper use of automation and pacing for those points of human intervention. A lot of human engineering going into that to pace equipment to prevent failure and injury and incidents, both quality and safety. When we talk about social factors, the focus is on personal relationships, leadership and management styles, workplace culture, communications, and career development opportunities are big things. It also focuses on support against violence, abuse, harassment, bullying in the workplace, along with always that freedom from reprisal for raising concerns about these kinds of things. And I think that's where it doesn't surprise me a lot of poll responders pick that category. It all comes down to managing the interpersonal relationships across the organization through the identification and policy around many social influences. Unlike the population at large, you can set standards within your organization and establish values that lead to the culture. The challenge, as always, is to have your supervision on board in every aspect here. So finally, the third category is work environment. Certainly the focus here is on equipment and hazardous tasks, adequacy and suitability of physical settings, tools, machines, materials. Also the consideration of the maintenance of equipment and workspace conditions. Things like lighting, space, temperature, noise control can have a tremendous impact on individual and collective work environment for people. For the most part, this is where traditional national standards and regulatory compliance programs, along with industrial equipment standards, offer a lot of the framework obviously for accident prevention. Of the three categories of risks and opportunities, this is likely where your house ought to be in order anyway. These are classic components of what have been the foundation of 45001 systems for some time now. So all of these considerations represent hazard identification and planning for controls to create a safe workplace. This is where that Annex SL aligns both the certification standard of 45001 with the guidance standard of 45003. Let's think back for a moment to that machine pacing example. Most often, that pacing element does show up in job safety analyses. I see this in our bottling plants and our woodboard panel plant clientele. It can create a work environment where a worker is challenged to compete with the machines and can be distracted from safe work practice and lead to injury or stoppage of the line in abnormal conditions that exist. So planning around those risks should include these psychosocial factors. And that's just an example of one I've seen for many years, long before the 45003 standard came about. So for more information on ISO 45003 and the standard and what it looks for, this is kind of a quick introduction to you. We encourage you to look at the LRQA webinar from June of 2023 and the related Q&As from that event. We'll provide a link to that webcast at the end of this webinar and what we send out. So Mike, I'd like to get your perspective on efforts towards incorporating psychosocial safety into your workforce, and how do you define or realize the benefits from a culture that empowers employees to be confident
Yeah,
about speaking out.
yeah, Bill, I think it's important that we all feel safe in the environment we're working in, our work environment especially, and especially where you're working in the environment where you're dependent on other people's actions for your safety. So having that ability or that comfort factor that you've got a system in place which you know is being checked and people are following the standard process because that will ensure my safety gives you a much better feeling and comfort for working in that environment.
Okay. Yeah, it's increasingly becoming a good tool in the toolbox to take a lot of organization that kind of last step in the process, that ever elusive culture that we read a lot about in industry press.
No, certainly.
Okay. On to the next slide, please. So what are some of the key requirements and expectations? I'll take a stab at it, and then we'll come back and see what some of the experiences with Mike and BAE have been. What might be expectations for having a suitable and effective OHS management systems? Certainly there are our expectations. And some of those, I'll just kind of go through as a practicing auditor and having done, I don't know how many OSAS and ISO 45001 audits to date. I'll give you an idea of a few of our expectations. We examine the organization and the way business is conducted. A very key criterion for success for us is communications. As job safety analyses and other hazard analyses are conducted, do they engage the affected workers? How effective are safe working permits carried out and fully understood? What are the avenues for input, and can they see through their thoughts and efforts factored in? So this is where we test the effectiveness of communications internally in a number of different ways. We're looking for that. A second criterion is the system itself. Is it planned around a framework for plan, do, check, act? And how do the many tools involved contribute to these 4 phases of any good management system, obviously, to drive continual improvement? It's a proven formula, and can we see that drive towards improvement? In brief, this is where our auditors spend a lot of time examining the various elements and the workflows of systems to see that they meet the expectations of the organization and the requirements of the standard. So does it work for you first, and does it satisfy the requirements of the standard as a result? That's kind of where we're looking at. And then finally, we do occasionally see partially completed management systems offered for certification. Please make sure you have fully internally audited your system for completeness and effectiveness before the start of third-party audits. We're in this ever accelerating workplace or environment or expectations and goals. And I'll be honest, sometimes organizations kind of jump the gun, and we really need to see that a system is working. So those are some of our expectations laid out here. Mike, I know it's been some time since BAE got started with OHS management systems. Still, what might be some long-standing expectations from your sites, and perhaps any new added sites that come into the organization?
Yeah, so Bill, we've been certified over 10 years. The key thing I'm always trying to get my guys and the team to be is treat every day like it's our first day, not to have had it for a long time. Because you're always looking for improvements within the business. Because any business over that time period will have dramatically changed in what it's doing. How you different processes, different techniques. So it's important that your risk assessment and your management system stays current with that. The key to keeping its system fresh is ensuring changes are made easily and the system continues to evolve. So you need some governance in place to make sure that that the changes are correct, but also you don't want to make a challenge just to get something through. They have to be dynamic, your systems. And also the systems are there. Just remember this is all around protecting staff and the business. And you want to make sure they're as practical and easy to use as possible and relevant to the business. One of the things we do as well is as new sites come on board, they will have a different perspective. So you can learn from the sites you've already established. Plus, there's a backwards learning from, they say, well, why are we doing this? You can come backwards as well on the other side as well from the sites that are coming on board. So it's continual improvement, I think, is the key thing.
Okay, great. And perhaps maybe, you mentioned some insights to a more of a day-to-day management tool. I mean, this should be fresh. I think you said continual improvement, available and used all the time versus something that's a book on a shelf type system.
That's right. The key thing is to keep it relevant and make sure that if it becomes out of date, the system people will start seeing, oh, look, I don't bother using it. It refers to something we don't do anymore. So important you keep it relevant and relevant to the business, and also local legislation will change as well. And you've got to continue and evolve, and you've got to make sure that you're keeping the appropriate records for the particular tasks in hand.
Okay, great. Oh yeah, let's go over to the next slide, please. We'll talk a little bit about a very busy slide here on ISO 45001. So let's take a look at the standard and its framework for a minute or two. Certainly it employs, obviously, the Plan, Do, Check, Act framework, common clauses that you see in many ISO standards. If you've had any of the other standards in play in your organization, you'll notice this clauses 4 through 10. It's a certainly you see this in certification standards for quality, environmental, food safety, information security, and on. They all use this structure these days. And obviously, a complete tour of the standard is well beyond the scope of what we want to carry on today. Your organization should plan to spend time understanding the terms, context of the organization, and the needs of the many interested parties, both internal and external. So the scope of your system addresses all these considerations. This ensures that your OHS management system remains suitable and integrated in its approach towards managing business risks, internal and external, and sustains a positive position in the eyes of these many stakeholders. There's a lot more visibility to what goes on in workplaces in today's social media driven world. And so how do you kind of stay on top of that is what I think that the systems can help. We've talked a bit already about identifying and planning the scope of your system. This is the core purpose of clause 4, as you see over here on the left side of the screen. Like other ISO standards, a strong policy to demonstrate leadership, commitment, and expectations that embraces the power of the workforce. Consultation and participation are some of the 5.4 or part of the clause 5 of the standard for 45001. That's something you might not see in the 9001, 14001 standard. Certainly your organization may realize that many existing programs and procedures that you have for safety management fit the bill of clauses 6, 7, and 8. Taking actions to address risks and opportunities, organizations with job safety analysis or process hazard analysis or risk analysis for hazards and risks or safe work permit programs, they start to fill in 6, 7, and 8 elements. Certainly some of your competence and training programs fill those requirements. Certainly, Clause 9 is one such place where integrated systems really create leverage, as these measures already exist for the management of other business risks, such as quality or food safety and environmental, and you can leverage them in. And then Clause 10, many organizations have robust injury and incident investigation tools that have been demonstrated to be good fits to address much of what Clause 10.2 is looking for on the workplace health and safety. It's a bit of a combination of systems non-conformity and real-world genuine injury and illness investigation processes that you all very much likely have in place. So we encourage you, for more information on the elements themselves, please visit our website resources. That includes a variety of in-person and virtual training opportunities, everything from one-day executive overviews to 5-day lead auditor training courses, if you really want to find out a whole lot more about all of these elements of the standard. So you've heard a bit from LRQA and BAE on their approach. Now we'd like to get a feel for your thoughts or approaches with our second poll question. Over to you, Louise.
Thanks, Bill. So our second poll question for today is, what is your organization's approach to integrated management systems? So we already have an IMS and would like to add ISO 45001. We would like to integrate our management systems in the next 12 months. We don't currently plan to integrate our management systems, or we are not currently certified to either ISO 9001 or 14001. So that question again is, what is your organization's approach to integrated management systems, or IMS? And please select one of the following. So we already have an IMS and we would like to add ISO 45001. We would like to integrate our systems in the next 12 months. We don't currently plan to integrate our management systems. Finally, we are not currently certified to either ISO 9001 or 14000. So if you can just take a second to choose the most relevant option for your organization, and then we will take a quick look at the results. Okay, so a bit more of an even spread here. So over a third looking to add 45001 to an integrated management system.
Okay. Kind of interesting results. Certainly for those of you who already have an IMS and would like to add 45001 or are looking to integrate in the next coming year or so, that's kind of where we're headed next, to talk a little bit about that topic. If you don't currently plan to integrate management systems, we hope that some of the insights in the coming few slides might change your opinion. And then certainly, with 9001 and 14001, there are some leverage points. Mike, maybe you could talk a little bit about some of the integration going on at BAE.
Yeah, so we've got the parts of business I'm in. We've got 5 different standards, and we are integrated. The key thing it gives you is the ability to, because of the Annex SL structure of the documents now, you can combine a lot of these documents together. So we have a document which determines what metrics we report across the business. We obviously have one audit procedure. We also have a context of the organization document that covers all the standards as well, because the standard doesn't, the organization doesn't change. And also it allows us to, the other benefit we get is with audit days, we can combine them. So you still end up with the same number of audit days, but you're not taking different auditors around the site 5 different times. You can do it 1 or 2 times, depending on how integrated your system is, and that saves time on the our business side. Yeah,
Great.
so
Great.
I would well recommend it.
Excellent. Excellent. So for those still thinking it through, let's run through what building 45,001 into an integrated system, what does it do, how to go about doing that. We'll spend a few minutes here. There certainly are a lot of commonalities across ISO standards now. Each has specific language that needs to be considered, obviously, and that's important. With much common language, there are opportunities to standardize elements and tools. I mentioned a few examples there, but one I think of is identifying external compliance obligations for product quality, environmental and safety regulations, and even industry standards can all be managed by a single process. Systems auditing for all these standards can be accomplished through an integrated process that often leverages resources such as internal auditors quite well. A great example for industrial standards, how is this process and the equipment supposed to work? How is it designed to work? Is it providing a quality environment for my equipment? A lot of those same standards have safety features written to the same standard. So that's where there's a lot of common ground. Certainly many companies with existing quality management systems have mature and well understood non-conforming condition evaluation and corrective action processes, very robust. These can be leveraged into workplace safety condition improvements also. Another thing we've seen in many instances, if not an actual injury or illness or one of these near misses, that's where some of these existing quality processes, boy, once you get the safety and quality people in the same room and using some of them tools, I've seen some eye-opening opportunities there. There's certainly companies that are pursuing a workplace culture for open engagement have often added occupational health and safety to their quality management system. The simple reason is engagement, that is of interest to all for workplace safety, can often lead to improved engagement and work teams that help identify workplace conditions that may be impacting overall quality of product realization, from raw materials through processing and manufacturing to product storage and handling across the workspace. So some examples of shared processes between OHS and quality systems, we talked a little bit, include understanding the needs of interested parties, both internal and external, the customer, the marketplace, the talent marketplace is another one that comes to mind. Risk ranking matrices are often shared understandings of risks. What are the business risks, whether it is a quality or a safety risk? Can we translate that into impact on delivery, impact on profits and revenue, so forth and so on? A lot of organizations have leveraged that. And then certainly many operating procedures that I've seen in doing workplace audits from either standard include safety and quality criteria to avoid, again, unintended consequences or failure of first-time right production. First-time right production means it happened safely. So that quality driver, that's where this integration, these are some of the examples that we see the great benefit of systems getting that common ground, and often approaches towards systems auditing and nonconformity management using some of these shared processes and tools realize benefit that might not have occurred independently. So Mike, any other challenges or benefits or challenges from integration?
Yeah, the benefits are you you have auditors can look for a number of things, because the different standards don't happen in isolation. The business is focused on delivering a particular aspect, and you have the quality, which is around obviously making sure it's what you need to deliver. You have the security aspect from the 27001, and obviously you've got to do it in a safe manner, plus considering the environment as well. So the key thing is you look at the whole part of what you're doing, and not just a single, and not just that particular standard. The challenge we get is you then have to train your auditors to look for those things. So when you have your auditors, you have to send them on different training courses, and you have to set your audits up such that they are looking at those different aspects as well. So you have to think about it a little bit more of how you're doing it, but by doing that means that the end result is much better, because you actually look at the whole and not just little individual parts. Yeah.
Great. All right. Next slide, please. So, how to prepare for your certification audit. At LRQA, we've long nurtured awareness and understanding with our clients and prospects on the certification process. Through our outreach and organized training offerings, we hope that your organization can benefit from some of that. One such recent offering are new readiness checklists that walk you through entire ISO standards, including one that we've prepared for ISO 45001. We'll have some more information coming with the handouts and the follow-ups to this event, with some of those check sheet new products that we've put out. Certainly, be sure to allow some time between our first look, what we call stage one visit, and our full certification visit. We call it a stage two. At stage one, we're reviewing your organization's scope of activities, the scale of operations, and other criteria that describes the intention of your management system. What is it that we're planning to certify? We also look to see if there's a complete and auditable system in place. Is there something there for us to audit? I mentioned completeness a few minutes back. We may provide suggestions or identify gaps that need to be addressed before that stage two examination. We want to make sure that you understand what that completeness is, and kind of where the bar is set, and we understand your organization and its intent. Keep in mind that our management system audits are not simply compliance to the standard at LRQA. We expect that reasonable internal inquiry to address regulatory obligations is in place. So, compliance with applicable regulations and national standards should be part of your policy, should be part of our expectation walking in the door. Certainly, our auditors have many years' experience and often identify some gaps for implementation of compliance requirements, along with examples of how others have navigated the various elements of the standard in effective ways. I think that's what makes our audit something different from someone who's just there to do a tick the box type of audit. And then certainly you want to make sure you create a team for implementation and certification, and make sure those team members can communicate out your intentions across your workforce. Mike, ongoing, what are some of the routine things BAE sites are expected to prepare for when third-party systems auditors arrive at your sites, and perhaps what would be your advice?
Well, the first thing is plan, because you want to make maximum benefit of the auditor's time for the day. You understand which parts of the system the auditor has a set things they need to look at, but you also need to know what areas you might need to prod or encourage, or just go and look at and feel you had a third party look at it as well. So planning is absolutely key to it. But other than that, you shouldn't actually have to do anything, because your process should be such that it's just ticking over and you're keeping everything up to date anyway. I think planning is the key thing. Work out where they're going to go, how they're going to do it, who they're going to see, and maximize that plan so it benefits you as a business So you get that third party to look at different parts of your process, which is the real benefit of the audit process.
Okay, yeah. Great. The next slide, please. So kind of a bit of a summary here. Here are but 3 significant advantages that we believe have been observed by organizations who pursue and maintain independently certified OHS management systems. Having a framework to consistently get started with physical or psychosocial health and safety concerns provides that sort of on-ramp and a lane to ensure that these concerns get resolved, that people are heard, and it's an organized approach. There's a lot to accomplish, no small task at hand here, so that framework is very important. The standard strives for employee engagement through a variety of participation and consultation so that your system is for everyone. So this is very important. You can't put a system together in a void. This should be a system that engages all workers and interests, and really that has been one of the big changes of the 45001 standard when it emerged from OSAS 18001 is that very point. And then finally, certification of a system can drive continual improvement, both internally and externally. Many organizations have a national or other obligations or expectations that systems are independently certified for a variety of reasons, and 45001 certainly provides that. So sometimes it's that third-party concurrence that really sets the wheels in motion, whether it's external stakeholders or internal stakeholders. So what I'd like to do now is before we go to our next poll, Mike, would you like to add anything more to just kind of how to get started?
I think the key message I would say is keep everything simple and practical. That's really key. You can make something look really complicated on paper, but people won't use it. Keep things simple to meeting the standard. It does take a bit longer, believe it or not. I think George Bernard Shaw said, sorry, my letter's too long. I didn't have time to make it shorter. So, but keep things simple and keep them short, because you want that people will do that, and you will get a much better system. I think that's my key message I'd like to give.
Great. So we're going to turn it over to Louise for a final poll question, and then after that, I think we're going to open it up for some question and answers. So Louise.
Absolutely. Thank you, Bill. So our final poll question for today is, will your organisation be looking for any of the following services in the next 12 months? So will you be looking for ISO 45001 gap analysis, ISO 45001 certification, or ISO 45001 training? If you're looking for any or all of those, please select all that apply. And those options again are ISO 45001 gap analysis, ISO 45001 certification, and lastly, ISO 45001 training. So thank you for taking part in the polls today. We appreciate your participation and support. And
okay,
I think we can end the poll there.
We'll take a look at those results. Pretty evenly split there. Training, certification, gap analysis, certainly feel free to reach out to us here at LRQA for any of those needs. Some organizations really looking to get the feel of things will go for gap analyses, and we do offer those opportunities to kind of get you started. But it looks like many are looking for certification and perhaps training either before or after implementation of a 45,001 system. So we appreciate that. I guess.
Yeah, so we'll start to begin answering the questions that have been submitted during today's presentation. As a reminder for our audience, you can still submit questions through the question pane in your attendee control panel. So, Bill, the first question we have is for you. Can we use our QMS auditors to audit our safety management system? So I think this is in relation to internal audit.
Yeah, you actually can. Many organizations have very well trained, independent mind quality auditors. Certainly you want to have some level of subject matter awareness. Often what you can do with an internal audit team is to bring in some of your OHS aware individuals, professionals, to become part of that team. But often that approach provides for a strong audit process and auditors to take on new ground.
Thanks, Bill. Okay. The next question is, can we use national or voluntary standards for occupational health and safety programs as part of our safety management system?
Mike, have you experienced that in BAE where it is an actual requirement?
Absolutely, because the standard says you have to meet the local laws of that country. So what you do is you can tie in with that because it's all part of the work, the wellness at work. So yes, you can tie in with them, and that's part of your process because you're expected to do it. Or even if it's a optional one, you can say we want to do this because there's a benefit to our workforce or to the business by taking a particular approach. So yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, and then the third question. So this is working from home a part of psychosocial risk?
Absolutely. It's been a big part of psychosocial risk. Boy, there are any given day developments and articles on this, and the challenges of that return to work, or what is the equivalence of remote work. It's a big part of psychosocial safety that I think when people were developing that standard, and I said it come out just kind of right as the pandemic was getting going. It's emerged as a really big element of, not simply do you have an ergonomic workplace. There are, work-life balance type of issues, organizations not wanting to see you emailing around at 9 or 10 or 11 p.m. Because you took a block of time during the day to attend to personal matters. Not every one of your coworkers takes that same block of time, and not every one of them appreciates engaging with you in the evening hours and things of that. So there's a whole new field of issues surrounding that. So yeah, it's certainly the framework is there, and it's emerging even more.
Mike, do you have anything to add there? I think one of the things that we've found is we have the part of the business I work in, we have a large graduate intake every year, and we have found that a lot of the graduates, a lot of the new start hires want to come into the office because they want to be part of the business, and so we've had to tie that into how it's to our health and safety, because you're also concerned that there might be in offices without experienced staff, so you've got to make sure that's covered as well. So, and the cycle, that side of it has to be everyone feels safe within their environment, and that's important. So you don't want sort of the younger people coming in without the experience of the older people being there, because you need the balance to ensure that you keep that safe work environment, because they may not be aware of what is dangerous or not. So yeah.
Great.
I think it's really helpful to get that kind of insight. Thank you, Mike. So the next question we've had is around ownership and responsibilities. So the person has said that there could be an overlap between tasks owned by HR and business leadership. How do you draw a clean line of ownership? And they've mentioned a RACI chart, so the responsible, accountable, consulted, informed. What's your take on that? What would you suggest?
Sure. There is overlap. Testing that ownership in any good management system, there's an element of roles and responsibilities where you need to clearly define what the individual expectations are, but a management system also should have what are those collaborative elements? Where do those parties, where should they be engaging on a regular basis? I often say to for many years now, since 45001 came out in 2018, our audits, when we come on site, we expect to and often have longer conversations with HR representatives. And we sometimes get those, not anymore, but for a number of years, got those blank stares where they say, how did I end up in this audit? I'm HR, and now this new standard of the 45003, that's right in their wheelhouse. They're trying to use, employee assistance programs and other things that have been in the HR realm. Yeah, if you're taking 45003 and incorporating it into 45001, there is a nice warm seat at the table for HR and leadership, and we hope they're sitting side by side. Mike, would you share on that?
Absolutely. And at the end of the day, the LT or the leadership team are responsible for leading the business, and HR is one of those functions. So they're interchangeable. There will be someone accountable for everything. It's how we've done it in our organization. So we can say which director, LT member we call them, is responsible or accountable, more put the point. HR are often responsible for undertaking the task, but the leadership team and directors are accountable for them, for ensuring that happens. And if it doesn't happen with HR, then you have the LT member or the director is actually accountable for making sure it does happen. So we've got those delineations like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Blake. Okay. So we're nearly out of time. I think we've got time for one more question. So, and I'm going to try and combine a couple. So we've had questions about engagement. So can you share any good examples of how companies have improved engagement and worker participation? And also a kind of second part around how do you engage the executive leadership buy-in for obtaining ISO certification? So.
Well, I'll take a quick stab at that two-part question. Engagement, if you have workplace safety committees, give them the opportunity to own as much of this system as they can take on and be involved with any kind of form of engagement, not just safety analyses, not just incident investigations, but the whole thing. Put them in the driver's seat. With leadership, it's got to start there. If you've got a workplace health and safety policy, there's got to be commitment from the word go. Otherwise, this is not gonna work. Your thoughts, Mike?
No, absolutely. Without leadership, without leadership buy-in, it doesn't work at all. You need their buy-in, and they need to understand why it's there. And as for participation, you've got to make sure that people are empowered to do things and they can actually see the results of what they've done. You want the system to be part of their DNA, if you like, as opposed to being dictated to. This is what you have to do. So it's key that they feel part of the system and can actually manage it appropriately and actually interact with it. Yeah.
Right.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you, Bill. Okay. I think we probably could have gone on for another half an hour at least with all the questions that have come on, and I'm sorry that we haven't had a chance to get through them all, but we will get back to the people who've posted them. So Thank you, Mike and Bill, and thank you everyone for attending today's webinar. Once you leave today's webinar, you will receive a survey on the presentation, and we would appreciate if you could complete that and provide your feedback. You'll also receive a follow-up email within the next few days with a link to view the recording of today's webinar. So on behalf of LRQA and our presenters, thank you for joining us and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.